And look, we're live. Awesome. Welcome, everyone. I'm Deborah Eckerling. I'm the founder of the Deb Method and author of Your Goal Guide, a roadmap for setting, planning, and achieving your goals. And tonight's topic is near and dear to my heart because I always say you need your tribe to reach your goals. So today, a member of my tribe is going to come and we're going to talk about networking and really the essence of it. And Beth, I will let you introduce yourself better than this, but Beth is a coach and LinkedIn expert and speaker, and we met on LinkedIn, and now here you are on my live. And I was blessed enough to talk to your group the end of last month, which was amazing, and now we are here. So first of all, why don't you introduce yourself, and we'll go from there.
Sure thing. So she already did a pretty good job of introducing me, don't you think? But I'm a trainer, consultant, and speaker on the topic of growing your business and professional brand using LinkedIn and networking. And we'll end up talking about it, but networking is the reason I'm even in business to begin with.
Well, let's go down there. So why? I mean, I know probably the answer, but go for it.
So a little over 10 years ago, I had been working at a company for many, many, many years, and I got let go. And I knew nothing about networking. I used to go to work, come home. That was it. I had some outplacement services, and they said, tell everyone you know you're looking for a job. My life insurance agent said, come to my networking group. I said, what's a networking group? Well, this amazing group of people, they truly knew that I was starting a business before I did. They took me under their wings and they encouraged me. And for months, I was saying, oh, no, I'm looking for a job. And they, with a knowing look, said, okay. And then when I was ready, the minute I said, that's it, I'm in business, all those relationships turned into referrals.
It's really, and you're not the only person who has said that. I know a lot of people who say, I was just so set on finding a day job. And then I met all these people and they knew. And then one day I said, it's time. And the same response, of course it is. Okay, good to go. Because, well, we need our network because there are resources, there are audience, there are community. I'm all about talking about you've got your connections and your connectors, but let's go a little bit more into this. Why is networking so important? Beyond what I just said.
Well, think about right now, this time that we've been going through. People who have, and to me, it's not just networking, it's the concept of community in general. So that might be your geographic community, your town, right? Where there was no toilet paper, it was the Facebook groups for your town where people were saying, oh, they have some at Target. So it's these communities that can help with everything. It's not just business development. They can help with family issues. They can just anything. It's a support system that I think so many people are missing.
I really love that you mentioned community because I purposefully made all of my January topics community focused because you have your community in place, then you can fly. So what about those people who are still in the, okay, too many lights flashing, too many shiny objects? What do you recommend for community development, either for their own or to find other communities?
Well, certainly it's easier to find a community that exists and join it. And that could be anything from an official networking group to an association, even a nonprofit. If you get involved, then you get to know all the other people that are involved.
Oh, that's good too. And people can volunteer and join groups just because everybody has basically embraced virtual. So even if you haven't, you say, oh, I can't do anything in real life. You don't have to. You can be parts of these groups without leaving the comfort of your computer screen.
Exactly.
What is the biggest challenge you think people face when they just get started networking?
Well, That's a good question. I think, pardon me, it also depends. I've been speaking all day. We were talking before we got on about my addiction to Clubhouse, the new app. But um, I think part of it is people don't know what to expect. And there are different, you say networking, and all networking is not the same. So you could go to some kind of an event where it's very transactional and people are trying to sell you and they just met you, versus a group where people are really just trying to get to know, like, and trust each other.
Right. So do you have some favorite groups that you think are good for like dipping their toe in the pool, as it were?
Yeah, I think that can be very local in a way, right? If there's an
Mm-hmm.
organization for, depending what you're involved in, for instance, I'm involved in National Speakers Association, and here on Long Island, I'm part of the Social Media Association. And while those aren't strictly networking officially, what happens is when you get to know people, then you end up referring each other and all of that kind of stuff.
I I like that part too. It's the refer each other, because I think one thing people miss out on is you go to networking groups and the people you meet aren't necessarily going to be your clients, your customers, your readers, your audience, but everybody knows people.
Yes.
So it's if you go into it with the idea that I'm just going to make friends, that's just like the first step.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean,
Okay. We had someone last night now, if you're new to Gold Chat Live, every Sunday night I lead the Gold Chat Twitter chat where we talk about a topic. Last night was networking. And then on Mondays, I bring in a special guest to dive deeper into the topic. And I had a bunch of introverts on Twitter last night saying, I like the idea of networking, but I can't quite get there. What do you have to say to them?
So part of it, I believe it's the group that you're going to go to, the facilitator of that group and the members of that group's responsibility to make you comfortable and welcome you. So it's kind of just like in person. If you were to walk in a room and nobody came and said hello to you, then you wouldn't be interested in getting to know these people. So I think, and that's also how you can tell if it's a good group for you. The minute you walk in a room or the minute you log on, how do you feel? How do those people make you feel?
And should you give groups a second chance if you have a bad first impression, or should you just move on?
That's a good question. I don't know, because I know when it comes to, for instance, judging people individually, I don't like to judge too quickly. So maybe, but I think sometimes you just know, go with your gut.
The gut does not steer you wrong. And someone else said, when you go to these events, you should be prepared to pitch yourself, which I think is good and it's bad, right? Because
you prepare to introduce yourself. That's different than pitching yourself.
Ooh, that's a really good point. So do you have your whole elevator, what you say when you meet people for the first time?
Sort of different every time. It's a little bit like what I said when I introduced myself tonight here. But I like to explore different ways of introducing myself. So I actually went to an event where part of what they did was had an exercise where and I did this with a networking group that I facilitate, describe yourself in what you do and yourself in one word. Then people would ask questions or clarify, then you do it in 2 words and see how few words you could use to get your point across of what you're all about.
Oh, that's interesting. I like that. I kind of feel like that should be the bonus goal, is to like get a buddy and see, or the next time you go to a networking event, try to describe what you do in 1 word. Deb, what do you do? Goals. Okay, I think people got me figured out. Beth, what do you do?
That's a little trickier. When I had that experience, I said, teach. And they said, oh, what grade? Right. So
teach. Interesting. Okay. Well, that's a really interesting way to think about things, and I'm gonna do it as a thread in my Right On group. Use one word to describe what you do, and we can go from there. Or if you're listening live, describe what you do in one word, and if we need clarification, we're going to ask you for it. So there's like a gazillion different ways you can meet people in this LinkedIn life.
Yeah.
What are you? We know you love LinkedIn. We know you love Clubhouse, like addiction, Clubhouse Anonymous. What are some of your other favorite ways of meeting people or finding places to meet people?
Well, I find that people that you know will invite you to other things, right? So I was introduced to, I spoke at an event, met somebody, she introduced me to someone else. I had that call today, and in the conversation, we were saying, hey, what do you do for networking? What do you do? And so we essentially invited each other to different groups that we're involved in that the other person didn't know.
What you're saying is if you make networking part of your regular conversation, you're gonna get as many rabbit holes as you want or need.
Absolutely.
I like that one. I'm putting it in the chat. Yes, this is me being tech support and producer and talker
You do the same.
all at once. Well, it's true. And I shared this last week. I'm going to share it again because it's such a great story. From my Tuesday night networking group, I ended up on a Friday networking group, and from the Friday networking group, I met someone who knew somebody I went to high school with who I hadn't spoken to in 20 years.
Wow.
So you don't know. One of my favorite games I like to play when I meet someone new is I immediately check who do we know in common on LinkedIn and who do we know in common on Facebook. And more likely than not, we have at least a few connections. But this person, we had two, and one of them was this friend from high school. So it was really kind of goofy, spooky. But referrals are always a good way to meet new people. I think something else you brought up, which bears repeating, is that don't just do work things. Do fun things.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, well, we spend so much time doing it. I just love getting to know new people, and also it's not always getting to know new people, it's getting to know the people you already know better.
Okay, explain.
So if you spread yourself too thin and you're at a different Zoom event every morning and every night, you don't have the time for the one-to-one conversations that are so important that let you really get to know each other. So in some cases, it's better to do less separate things and really get to know the people in that organization or that group.
All right. So instead of the networking goal being go to 5 events a week, maybe the networking goal is to go to 2 events a week and then have 3 one-on-ones. Yes. So you're still doing 5 events, but you're mixing it up a lot.
Yeah.
I remember when we used to meet people in real life.
No.
Yeah. I always thought it was interesting because what I would do is I would meet as many people as possible because I am me. That is what I do. And then the ones that I really liked, if they didn't reach out to me, I would reach out to them and say, hey, let's do a one-on-one. Let's have a conversation. And I find I'm doing it more now that everything's online than I ever did back when you could connect with people in real life. Are you finding that as well?
Well, I think it's a time thing, right? Mm-hmm. So if it takes however long, a half hour to an hour to get somewhere to meet somebody, even if it's only 15 minutes, that cuts into the time. Now, in that same time, you could have 2 separate meetings.
I know. Don't you? It's like the way to look on the bright side. Yep. No, you can't leave your house. Yes, you could do twice as much.
But I think it's also important to not fill in all the gap time. Mm-hmm. Back in last April, I felt like I had no I was just filling in all that time that I used to sort of have to myself, whether it was in the car or on the train. And so I actually put in my calendar a lunch break and gap time between meetings.
I love that. Don't fill in the gap time. Well, that's part of self-care too.
Yes.
Now, do you consider networking goals to be business or personal or both?
Good question. I guess for me, business, but there's no delineation these days. It feels like it's all jumbled up together.
That is true, but you also separate things out, which is so important and people forget to do. People forget to take lunch. I know. Can you imagine forgetting lunch?
No.
So when you're working with clients, what challenges do they have with networking and what do you advise to them?
So I think some people are impatient and they expect results right away. So they expect they're going to go to one event or have one conversation and that's going to change their life. And what I always like to say is there are no shortcuts to relationships. So to allow a relationship to grow and not expect immediate results, because it's like planting seeds. They'll grow and you never know where it'll come. You know, I could have met somebody a year ago that somehow, for some reason, calls me tomorrow.
That's true. And I've mentioned this on more than one occasion. Some of the clients I work with, I have known for years. And they know that when they're ready to get that book in order or get that project out of their head and onto the page, and it could be completely out of the blue, I'll get it. Hey, Deb, I'm ready. We met, 6 years ago when you spoke at this place. And it's a really good point. The other thing is some of the people you meet, you get like that instant connection. Other people, you're like, I think I like this person. I'm not quite sure, but we're going to see, right?
Yeah.
What about red flags? Do you have any good advice for when you should stay away?
Well, I guess that's listening to your gut again.
Mm-hmm.
But I think sometimes you just know. You just get an icky feeling, right? That this doesn't make sense. I think if somebody's too pushy too soon, then that, you're not going to like that. Other than that, I think it's really just you get a sense of things. What do you notice?
Mm-hmm. So walk the line between some people are nice, some people are maybes, and some people are like with clothes. Keep, throw away, think about it.
Right. And that's how I do my LinkedIn connection invites, the incoming ones.
Mm-hmm.
The ones that are yeses right away, I do. Sometimes they're no's right away. And then the others, kind of bad. I leave them there. And then on a rainy Saturday afternoon, I'll go through them and make some decisions.
Do a lot of people you don't know connect with you on LinkedIn? Or is it more people that you might have met?
No, there's a huge amount of people I don't know. But so that's, and it depends what you're all about. And I think people, there are the fake accounts still. There are people who they search for you and they want to sell you something. Or there are people who just genuinely want to get to know you.
And it's more gut stuff? Is it mostly gut stuff?
For those people I don't know?
Yes.
I actually, I'll take a look at their profile. I'll make some decisions. And I will actually, if I think, maybe this person might be somebody I'd like to know, I will reach out before deciding to start a conversation and just say something like, hey, I like to actually know the people I'm connected with. Curious how you found me and what made you interested in connecting. And that can start a conversation. And if they don't write back, then no, I'm not.
Usually if someone connects with me, unless I recognize the name or I see we have a bunch of people in common, so they might have heard me speak. If there's no note, usually it's a no.
Yeah.
And if there's no picture, it's definitely a no because you don't know who that is.
And it's interesting now with, we mentioned Clubhouse.
Mhm.
I find it so fascinating that I'm meeting people because of those conversations and then connecting on LinkedIn. And you feel like you already know them. It's more like having met in person because you've already had a conversation.
Oh, so it's like a pre-screen.
Yeah, yeah.
Interesting, like almost an informational interview, lurking-ish. I like that. Now, let's say someone's listening and they want to expand their network and they meet people. What can they do when they reach out so they're not coming on too strong? What will inspire a yes, an acceptance?
Well, so just like in person, if somebody said, "Hey, how about we have a coffee meeting or something?" Behave the same way online. Look at their profile, comment on something real. Don't just use a standard, "Hey, let's connect." Maybe they wrote something and you can comment on that. Maybe you went to the same school. Maybe just be human about it.
Someone reached out to me the other day, and and we had just a couple people in common, but he went to Madison. He went to UW, and I'm like, okay, we have a couple people in common. He wrote a note. I'm not quite sure, but he's a fellow alum, so that does make a difference because you've got that one thing in common that's a basis. And I don't think people lie about where they went to school.
Well, because it's their career, right?
Right. Well, I think when it's LinkedIn, it's a little bit of a different story than when it's any other, right?
Yeah.
Because people are on it for the purpose of business connections. And I will usually put at the end of my Twitter chat, I do connect with me, and I leave my Facebook groups and I leave my LinkedIn. And usually if someone finds me on LinkedIn, they're like, we were on a chat. I was just on your chat. Automatic, yes. But a lot of times for these conversations, for these Twitter chats, you don't have that instant level of knowledge because there's so many people chatting. And so that, I think, is why it's really important if you meet someone to specifically say, we were in this conversation together.
Yeah.
Are there other, I know you love Clubhouse, we love LinkedIn. What is platform number 3 for meeting new people online?
That's a really good question. I would have to say a tie between Twitter and Facebook for me. On Facebook, it's more activities within groups.
Mm-hmm.
So conversations that happen in a group. And then Twitter, it used to be an amazing place for finding communities, building communities, less so now, but occasionally still I'll be involved in a conversation that moves from Twitter to somewhere else, to LinkedIn or whatever it might be. What about you?
Well, Facebook was like my first. No, actually, that's not true. I've been on LinkedIn since I think 2003. I was reading a book and it said, drop what you're doing and join LinkedIn. So I did. And so I've been involved, and I've watched the evolution of LinkedIn, which has been fascinating.
Yeah.
And then I joined Facebook because somebody said, hey, did you hear about this Facebook thing? I think it was like 2007, something about right. And then I started my Write On community there. And I had the Write On Facebook group, and then they turned all the groups into pages. But do you remember? I think that was around 2008, 2009. So it kept the group and made the group into a page. So about 5 years ago, when groups got big again, I made the Write On group. So that's always kind of been like my second. And then not all of a sudden, I realized that there were people who were not interacting with me because they didn't like Facebook. And I had been thinking about doing a Twitter chat for a while. And then it was just 3 years ago. So 2018 in January, I started my Gold Chat Twitter chat because it's one of the content marketing things is you need to be where your people are. If
Right.
your people are in different places, you should be in different places. So whereas, yes.
Forgot something. Slack. So I don't know
You're-
if you consider that a social platform or not, but I'm in some amazing groups on Slack.
I've done a little bit of Slack. Slack has never been my favorite. Tell me why I should love Slack.
Well, if you find a community of people, so I'm in a group of people that do what I do. I'm in one called Serial Marketers. It's all marketing people. And I'm in one called Rev Genius, which is all people in the business development or revenue development area. And it's just, there's so much information and conversation and resources. And so I really like it.
Maybe I should play on Slack instead of getting an iPad so I can be on Clubhouse.
You'll like Clubhouse.
Yes, I know. Okay, something else to consider, and there are a bunch of little mini networks as well. But and when I talk to people and I coach people, I always say you should be on LinkedIn, you should be on Facebook, you should be on Twitter. You probably want an Instagram. You likely should have a YouTube channel. And YouTube is neither here nor there, because if you're comfortable on screen, you need to be on YouTube and interacting with people. If you're not planning to do video, then maybe it's a little less important. But the big three still, although it leaks a little. I'd say Instagram is probably my least active community. I'm on it, but I'm not on it nearly as much as I'm on the other ones. But at least to have some sort of presence, because when you meet people, the first thing someone's going to do when they meet you is they're going to look you up. Same thing you're going to do when you meet them. And typically the first place to connect is LinkedIn, because it's the professional network. Then I always say follow people on Twitter and follow their pages on Facebook, because people aren't always interested in connecting right away on Facebook.
Right.
And then see what happens from the relationship. So LinkedIn is a must, because most people will connect there if you've met. And then everything else is kind of as the relationship develops.
Yeah, I know a lot of people that keep Facebook very personal and locked down. It's their kind of friends and family only.
Which is fine. And it's really your prerogative. One thing I will say, doesn't matter if it's friends or family or whatever, you should always have some form of professional presence on Facebook, because there are no secrets.
That's true. I always say, assume every post anywhere could end up on a billboard on the highway.
Ooh, yeah, that's a little bit direct.
Screen capture. Nothing goes away.
Nothing goes away. And you just need to be safe and kind of be consistent too in your messaging. I think people forget, and you mentioned this and it's worth mentioning again, when you meet people online, pretend you're meeting them in real life and have the same manners and behavior.
Yeah, exactly.
As you would. I'm curious, what do you think about LinkedIn groups?
I so wish. So a couple years ago,
Mm-hmm.
I attended an event in person at the LinkedIn offices in New York City. And it was called the Groups Listening Tour. And they asked all the right questions and then seemingly did nothing with that information. They have such potential, and I hear that they're working on some things with them, but right now, yeah, no, they just not happening.
I keep wanting them to be better.
Me too.
And you do, aren't you a LinkedIn in real life event coordinator as well?
Oh, so the LinkedIn local events?
Yes, those.
Yeah, so that was actually started by a woman in Australia, and it's spread all over the world. And then LinkedIn said, wait, you're using our name, so here are the rules. And people do events everywhere. I actually did one virtually last April. But yes, it's a lot of fun. I love bringing people together.
Well, I always say you have connections and connectors, and I think you and I both fall into that second category. We talked about ways to use networking for yourself. Let's just talk a little bit about developing a community. What advice do you have for someone who says, "This is all great. I'm going to join things, but I want a community of my own"? Where should they start?
That's a great question. So wherever they like to be, I guess, would be a good, if it's a place that they're going to be comfortable, then they can do that. So a lot of people will just start a networking group, or someone will start a Facebook group, or someone will start, whatever it might be around a topic. I mean, think about all the different groups that you're in for either work or pleasure. I just got an air fryer for Christmas, so I'm in a Cuisinart POA 65 group now.
Oh, I love it. I didn't know you were an air fryer person.
Well, I wasn't until I'm still exploring it. The other day, I was using the regular oven, the air fryer oven, and the microwave all at once. So, yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I became an Instant Pot addict. And from there, I got one of the air fryer tops, and that wasn't good enough. So I had to go get an air fryer, which I got, I think it was a year ago around the Thanksgiving sales. And it's really my favorite. I mean, they're all my favorite. I never liked to cook until I got these great gadgets, which is really, it calls back to, it doesn't have to be a work thing. If you have a hobby and you want to start a community based on that hobby, then go for it. Okay, now my friend Gene just chimed in, and he said, "I'd say listening to this has made concern that advice is being sent out, groups on LinkedIn, spam corporate alumni, spam industry groups, and philanthropic groups. I wouldn't chime in on everything, but I've listened for 30 minutes with few exceptions, and I'm underwhelmed. Have a good evening." Okay, well, I thank you for that and for chiming in. Eugene, nice to see you. And it raises a good point. You don't necessarily need to chime in on everything. Be wary, which we talked about before. And just the thing that we didn't really mention is the importance of having fun.
Yeah, I mean, think about your day. You spend so much of your day with people doing work, whatever it might be. You want to have a good time. You want to enjoy yourself. And if it's boring, why be there?
Right. So go look at the activities that are going to enrich you and do more of those. And when you're interacting, I mean, you mentioned air fryers and my eyes lit up, right? Find the topics that work for you and put yourself out there. And just, I think, be open that the people you meet, they could turn into something, or they could turn into the giveaway pile.
Yeah. And it's okay. Not everybody is not right for everybody else, right? It's finding, and sometimes back when we used to do things in person, if I would go to an in-person event and it just didn't seem like it was right for me, then I would say, all right, my mission is to find people that my referral partners want to meet. So I know who they're looking to meet. So that would be my goal. Instead of thinking about myself, think about my referral partners.
Interesting. So if you're at an event, it's not a fit for you, keep an eye out. I always think, and I always say that it's a fun exercise for me to go to an event and pretend I'm an introvert. Usually doesn't last very long, but it's if you're an extrovert, to kind of sit back and take a look at what's going on around you, or if you're an introvert, do the opposite of what feels natural to you. Because when you're in different communities, you can be whomever you want, but just be yourself.
100%. Absolutely.
Okay, so before we wrap up, any final thoughts? We do need to give a bonus goal, and I think the bonus goal should be join my Right On community, but also to find a new community. Ask a friend for a recommendation for networking. That's easy.
I like it. think that's a
Okay.
good goal.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do you have a good one to add?
Yeah. Go into it thinking about how you can help other people, not how you can help yourself.
Oh, I like that. Okay, so find a new group, ask a friend for a rec, and also ask a friend for a rec, and see how the people you meet can help your friends. This is great. We're gonna throw this in here. Oh, and Estella joined. Good to see you. Glad you could be here. Now, Beth, where can people find you?
Well, LinkedIn, of course. And if you send a connection in, I think I have the follow button on now. So if you send a connection invite saying this is where you came across me, but and if you're on Clubhouse, I'm there at Beth Granger. Those are probably the two best places.
Okay, so find Beth on Clubhouse and or LinkedIn, and you can find me at the Deb Method everywhere: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You can, if we're not already connected, please find me on LinkedIn. I will put the links to my communities. You can also read the recap for this and my other Goal Chat Lives on the Deb Method blog. Let me throw that link in the comments. And if you have any if you have networking goals as your goals or other goals that you need a little bit more help on, please check out your goal guide. I will put that link in here as well, because my goal is to help people achieve their goals, and you can't achieve your goals without your network, because you need people for inspiration, motivation, resources, clients, referrals, everything, right? It's all that. We're not alone in this. And so the community is here to help you for that encouragement. And we're here to encourage you as well. So connect with Beth, connect with me. Feel free to join Goal Chat Live every Sunday at 7. I will be back next Monday and every Monday at 4 p.m. for another expert guest. Beth, thank you so much for coming to hang out with me today. And for those listening, watching, I appreciate you. Please share your best networking tip in the comments. In the meantime, whatever your goals, remember, you can do it.